Sober October, day 18. The Pillars of Addiction. Step 2 of Alcoholics Anonymous says, it came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. If you have a problem with alcohol, you have to break down the excuses and the mental tricks, all the stuff going on in your head that you've used to support your behavior. You have to get into your mind and figure out, what are the lies? What's the nonsense, the BS that I've been feeding myself to keep doing what I've always done? This is a big hurdle. So far, in terms of trying to figure out if alcohol is a problem, we've looked at the different signs and evidence that can point to a bigger problem, and most of that evidence has been external. Patterns in our behavior using alcohol as a solution, our powerlessness over it, the unmanageability in our life. Other people can see this. We know it. They know it. It's external stuff. But the excuses and the mental tricks and the false beliefs, that's not as easy to spot. This is the stuff going on inside us, and we don't always let that stuff out. In fact, we're pretty good at tricking ourselves and others, and it's hard to see the tricks ourselves. But it's there, especially if you have all the external evidence going on. The internal stuff is there, waiting to be found and dealt with. And if this stuff isn't dealt with, it makes sobriety and recovery from alcohol and other substances and behaviors near impossible, because the stuff going on in our minds and in our hearts is really the core of addiction and recovery. If we keep doing this stuff, we're never going to really get any traction. So let's dive in and you'll see what I mean. There are excuses that we use that can either keep us headed towards addiction or stuck in addiction. I've heard them referred to as the 4 pillars of addiction. When someone is actively in their addiction, meaning they are using their drug of choice without any real attempt to not use it, that compulsive behavior or addiction is standing on 4 pillars: denial, minimization, rationalization, and justification. These are the things we tell ourselves or others when we're confronted with all the external evidence that we've already looked at. Let's break it down. Denial. Have you ever said things like this? I'm fine. I don't have a problem. I can stop whenever I want. I'm not out of control. This is how everyone acts. I'm just having fun. In denial, we refuse to acknowledge, accept, or admit that we have a problem. It's the defense mechanism that has kept us on this path for so long. It's too overwhelming to admit, and so we deny. Minimization. Have you ever said things like, I'm not that bad. I'm not hurting anyone. It's not like I'm drunk all the time. What harm does it do? With minimization, when we say these things, we're attempting to downplay the damage, minimize the magnitude of our behavior and possibly our addiction or our bondage to that behavior. It helps us believe the lie of denial. Justification. Have you ever said things like, all I want is a little relief. It's just blowing off some steam. I'm stressed. It helps me relax. I can't handle them. I need a drink. We somehow justify our drinking because we feel a certain way. Something has happened to us. Someone did something. We're victims, and we justify our actions because of all this. It's kind of out of self-pity, and sometimes it's used to manipulate how others see us and our situations so that they won't lean into us about what we're doing. This helps us feel better about our actions. Rationalization. Have you ever said things like, this isn't my fault. This is what everyone does. Calm down. It's probably genetic. I have an addictive personality. I can't control this. Here, we somehow vindicate our drinking by explaining it in some logical way, what we think is logical. It helps us avoid the actual reasons we drink. This helps us avoid taking any responsibility for our actions. In recovery, we have a saying, our own best thinking got us here, meaning we have to own our thoughts that led to all the behaviors and actions that got us into recovery. A lot of that best thinking is made up of these 4 pillars of addiction. These are defense mechanisms that we use to protect us from the truth and the reality of our situation. Why do we do this? Because the reality of our situation, the truth that maybe I have a drinking problem, maybe I'm an alcoholic, maybe I need to get some help, that is just too much for most people. It can trigger a lot of shame and guilt, and guess what? We want to avoid those feelings because they seem like they're way too much to handle. So we have these mental tricks that we get stuck in to deny reality and deny what might be true. So if you think maybe you have a problem with drinking or something else, most definitely this stuff is going to be going on in your mind. I'm sure you can recognize or resonate with some of the examples. If so, I do want to encourage you because it kind of comes across as harsh. I've been using the word evidence in terms of having a problem, and that might make you feel like you're on trial. You're not. This isn't about judgment or verdicts about who you are, your worth, what you've done. That's not my goal. My goal isn't to make you feel bad or condemn you. You probably do that enough to yourself on your own. My goal is to help you determine if you need to take action, and if you do, to provide some suggestions and next steps. So if you're starting to think, man, I think I have a problem, you're not less than. You're not bad. You're not worthless. You're human, and all humans struggle, and all humans have room for growth, some more than others. I have lots of room for growth, so you're not alone. So some questions to ask. Do you see powerlessness in your life related to alcohol? Do you see unmanageability in your life related to alcohol? Do you see these 4 pillars going on in your mind related to alcohol? If you do, here's what I tell people. You're not alone. There is hope, and there is a way forward. That's where we're headed next. What needs to change, specifically in our attitudes and our actions. But that is it for today's episode. I hope it gave you some perspective on your relationship with alcohol and whether or not you need to maybe change some things or get some help. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.